And welcome everybody to the Huddle on KGUN 9 streaming sports platforms, our digital sports talk show. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. And as you see there, we've got Ryan Hanson, Arizona basketball radio analyst, joining us today. So Pat, first, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. What a day for Arizona basketball, right?
Yeah, a lot of awards. Ryan, thanks so much for joining me and Pat today. And you look at Arizona basketball taking home so much hardware today with Coach of the Year and Tommy Lloyd, the Player of the Year, and Ben Mathurin, and the Sixth Man of the Year and Pelle Larsson, and the Defensive Player of the Year and the Most Improved Player of the Year, Christian Koloko. I believe we've got a graphic of all that. What impresses you the most, Ryan? To me, it's how much every player has improved from last year. But what impressed you so much about this Pac-12 champion team that's gone 28-3?
I think it really shows up in these awards. It's the individual improvements, talent level, contributions that all synthesized beautifully into an amazing run. To be frankly honest, when you step back and you look historically at the number of wins, obviously this is a record, and that's a caveat because there's only been 2 seasons of 20 conference games. But you look at the number of wins in conference, the dominant performances in conference, and then the lack of just bad games. How many times have you watched sports, guys? You know, over the course of an entire season, there's going to be the quote unquote off night, bad night, can't get it going. The best player has a bad day, injuries, foul trouble. You add all that up, and honestly, in the Pac-12, I can only come up with the 2 losses as those bad games. Colorado loss and the UCLA loss, even the ASU, game at home where Arizona shot 32% from the floor, they found a way to win and actually went going away. And so you kind of look at this team from that perspective and see, wow, this was a dominant group, and the awards definitely reflect that domination of the conference.
We just saw Valerie's comment of "Go Wildcats!" What, and woot woot, however you want to say it. Rhino, I think that you're going to hear Tommy Lloyd deflect this and say players, 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 and he is great about recognizing these accomplishments of these players, and you mentioned the improvement. But Tommy Lloyd legitimately could, and in my opinion, should win National Coach of the Year, not just Pac-12 Coach of the Year.
Yeah, when you step back and look at what he's done in his first season, and there's an argument nationally that, well, did he really recruit the entire roster? And I would say absolutely he recruited every single player on this roster. The ones that were here before him, he had to re-recruit. He wasn't involved in their home visits when they were 16 years old. He didn't have them come to campus to build that relationship, but he had to recruit them in a window of time and in a time of the college basketball that has transfer portal written all over it, right? How many guys left? He was able to make connections and recruit these guys, bring in 3 transfers, and in the time frame to be able to weave this thread through each guy and pull all the right strings, per se, to me has been unbelievable. And he's unlocked the potential of a number of the players, especially the ones that won the awards today. Ben Mathurin, Player of the Year. There was potential there, no doubt. We saw that last season, but you could argue it's Tommy Lloyd that's unlocked that. And you can definitely, for sure, say it about Christian Koloko. He is a completely different player and finally was recognized for those improvements. Give him credit for putting the work in, but give Tommy Lloyd and his staff the credit for unlocking that door for him to walk through.
Ryan, I wasn't going to bring this up, but now that you mention it, certainly, of course, Tommy Lloyd, a tremendous amount of credit and well-deserved as Pac-12 Coach of the Year. And I talked about the improvement that we've seen in every player, and he's the big reason why. But does Sean Miller get any credit for this team doing this well? I mean, he's the one who found Ben Mathurin. He had to recruit some players at a disadvantage with the whole allegation and investigation going on. Do you think he's, we see him on this podcast and he doesn't talk about Arizona that much, but a little bit. Do you think he's sitting back with really happy for these guys? And do you think he deserves a little bit of credit for recruiting these players?
That's a great observation, Jason. And I think you're absolutely right. You look at the core group of players, right? The starting five, in essence, were identified, recruited, and brought to Arizona by Sean Miller and his staff. And I've heard him talk about this recently. He gives Jack Murphy a ton of credit for helping in that process. Well, Tommy Lloyd recognized that, I think, very early on about how integral Jack Murphy was as the associate head coach for Sean, kept him on staff for a lot of reasons, but one of them very well could be for roster retainment and his eye for talent and the ability to recruit those players. I don't know. I haven't asked Sean directly. I've stayed in touch with him. Hey, do you take a sense of pride out of knowing that what your guys are doing? But I have heard him say in some other interviews, absolutely, he looks at this as that was the foundation I was building towards. And I wish I could have coached them to be a part of that, but there's no doubt the cupboard was not bare in that transition, like it is in many cases. And relatively speaking, the football transition, the cupboard from a talent and personnel standpoint, Jed Fish has had to deal with less talent that he was able to just re-recruit, let's say, for that phrase, than what Tommy Lloyd has. And that's not taking anything away from Tommy, not taking anything away from Jed, but just saying definitely Arizona basketball had some pieces when Tommy took over.
Yeah, they were definitely in different positions, different locations in the sports world. Ryan Hanson is our guest here on the Huddle. Ryan, when you look at this team now heading into the Pac-12 tournament, we've seen an Arizona Wildcat team be number one seed and win the tournament. We've also seen not just the Pac-12, but the NCAA tournament. We've seen him not be a number one seed and still win. Where is this team at, and what are your expectations as we enter this Pac-12?
It's a great take there, Pat. And when I was with the basketball team as either a manager or the director of operations, I have the badge of honor, like many of us did, that I can say I was a part of teams that won and lost at every stage of the NCAA tournament. So you look back at what factors come into play, which are bigger and smaller variables. And you can't pick one that is the clear path. And that's probably the beauty of March Madness, is there isn't one silver bullet that says this is going to get it done. So Arizona's staying in San Diego. That's a foregone conclusion that they're going to be in San Diego because of the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee's guidelines that they follow. Well, that comes with pros and cons, right? Close to home, travel issues should be relatively minimized. Time zone issues should be minimized. But then, are there more people there? Is there more ticket demands? Is there more pulling and tugging of them off the court? So you can add up all those factors, and what you have to look at, I've always go to a few things when it comes to postseason. Are you playing well? In other words, are you hot? The hot teams end up advancing regardless of the issues. Are you a little lucky? The ball kind of has to bounce your way a couple times throughout a run. So hot, lucky. Are you injury free? If you're injury free, you're in good shape. Do your best players play the best? So Arizona's case, is Ben Mathurin going to be the best player on the floor in a game where we need him to be the best player on the floor? That's to be determined. And then do you have your X factors? And those X factors come in the form of glue guys like Dalen Terry. Does he play above how he's been playing? Does he play below? And the other big X factor that is one that really you won't know till Selection Sunday, matchup. Just because you're a 1 seed doesn't mean that 2 seed, 3 seed, 4 seed, when it's matched up against you, has all the right recipe from a roster construction and a style of play to just prey on your weaknesses versus your strengths. And we've seen that work both ways. Arizona's construction of its lineup in 97 was Kansas's worst nightmare. When you look at speed and quickness against the big, tall guys. Their backcourt, Jacques Vaughn, Jared Haas, excellent college basketball players. Speed has never been used to describe those two players. Little quickness from Jacques Vaughn, not Jared Haas. So Arizona had the roster construction and style of play to beat that team. You could argue there's been too many for me to repeat roster construction and style of play that beat an Arizona team.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, talking about the Pac-12 tournament and hot teams, they may face a very hot team in their first matchup. ASU is, outside of Arizona, the hottest team possibly in the Pac-12. They've got to get by, that 8-9 game. But then if Arizona wins that, I believe they would play Colorado in the semifinals, and they won't have any trouble getting up for that game after what happened with the Buffaloes. That may be, you talk about how Arizona didn't play any bad games. That may have been the only one. The UCLA loss, I feel like they were a little tired. Third road game in a week. I think they got hosed by the officials in that first loss.
Azuolas Tabellas was injured, right?
Yep. Yeah, mm-hmm. but they weren't great, and we were waiting for that big spark to come in the Colorado game, and that didn't come. So I do think you're going to see them, get up for that game and want to avenge that loss if they do play Colorado in the semifinals.
As you evaluate the path of the Pac-12 tournament, you have ASU and Stanford playing, and let's not forget, Stanford actually played ASU very well. Maybe one of the best in this run that ASU has had. They've been blowing teams out in this last, 8 games? I think they're 7-1 in the last 8 games. Of Stanford, it was a close game. Stanford has the size to defend them a little bit better than most. So they got to get by Stanford first. But relatively speaking, Jason, they're hot. And one of the reasons I think you could argue why they're hot is their backcourt was a little bit undisciplined for a majority of the season. And I felt they were taking bad shots. Now they're taking better shots and making shots. And so they're a much different team as everybody is when you're making shots, but that was their Achilles heel. They couldn't score. They could stop you. They could defend you. They could hold you down. Like I mentioned, they held Arizona to 32% shooting in McKale Center. They were in the game because of defense, but it went away because they couldn't score enough. So ASU's a dangerous threat for that first Thursday game. And there's a little argument on what's better, to be rested for Thursday's game, i.e. the number 1 seed, or to have played in T-Mobile Arena, to have gotten the jitters of a neutral court out of your system, and now you're kind of rolling into game 2 if you're ASU, having played in the first round on Wednesday. So what's the best scenario? It's up for debate as to which is the best scenario. But if Arizona is able to advance to Friday night, I do think it's probably going to be Colorado. News of the most recent past here this afternoon, Will Richardson from Oregon has said he's not going to be playing for Oregon during the Pac-12 tournament. That drastically diminishes their hope of advancing. So you almost could pencil in with relative confidence, as anyone would in a single elimination tournament, that Colorado would be facing Arizona. And I do like Arizona's chances in that game. I think they played a very poor game. I think the fatigue was also a factor in there. And like you said, Jason, it's the mental approach to that game. There will be no problem getting up to play for Friday night. Then you're playing for a championship on Saturday, which is what you want to do in any tournament setting.
Lindsey Hopkins says, what will U of A's biggest challenge in this tourney? What will it be? And I guess, I'll ask it this way. Arizona wins the Pac-12 tournament if blank, and Arizona loses the Pac-12 tournament if blank. Fill in the blank, Rhino.
I think it's a physical and a mental challenge for the Wildcats. I think 3 games in 3 days, tight 8-man rotation. However, we saw Adama Ball get quality minutes. Maybe that's a sign of things to come for the Pac-12 tournament. So I think it's a physical challenge first. Can Arizona sustain the level of play at which they want to play their best? And the best version of themselves is fast on defense, fast on offense, attack. So if you're going to play at that level, can you do it 3 games in 3 days? Do they have the physical fortitude? The other part is the mental side. There's, relatively speaking, outside of a championship and the pride of the games, there's really nothing to play for, in my estimation, unless you lay a complete egg on Thursday afternoon. I believe the number 1 seed is probably all but locked up for Arizona. They would have to look really bad against Arizona State or Stanford to lose that. So you're not playing for a seed. You're not playing for San Diego to play in the West. Those are, relatively speaking, locked up. San Diego for sure is. You're probably not playing for the West region because Gonzaga will most likely take care of business tonight in the WCC title game over St. Mary's if they have not already locked that up. So it's a mental game now, right? So 3 games in 3 days, it's about pride. It's about winning a championship. And mentally, are you playing for more than just, a seed, a title? I think Arizona's got an edge to it. I would be surprised if they came out flat mentally, but I think those are the biggest challenges for Arizona.
What makes you so sure Gonzaga is going to take care of business against St. Mary's? Didn't they just lose to St. Mary's last week?
On the road, I would say on paper, Gonzaga is better than St. Mary's for all the reasons you and I would sit here and say Arizona probably stands a really good chance to beat Colorado on Friday night because of the same retribution and what they did at home. The neutral court plays a big factor. Playing in Moraga, California at St. Mary's, that is a shoebox. It is a very difficult place to play. So you give them a few points. And if you watch that game, it's kind of like the Colorado-Arizona game where you watch Drew Timme and you said, that's not Drew Timme. Just like you watched Arizona and you said, what's wrong with Ben Mathurin? Why is Kirk Kriisa not knocking shots down? So similar reason. I don't want to, say I've got the crystal ball by any means of that WCC title game, but I believe pretty strongly that Gonzaga is the better team.
Yeah. Aaron Conlon says Arizona, UCLA, USC are really only playing for March Madness seedings this weekend. Is there a surprise Pac-12 team that might sneak through and get a bid by winning the conference tournament? And really, that's what it comes down to, Rhino. We know the three teams that will represent the Pac-12 unless somebody unforeseen comes up and wins the tournament.
Yeah, the easy answer is, just look at last year. Oregon State ran the table, and they were not expected. They wouldn't have been an at-large team in the NCAA tournament, got in because of the automatic qualifier of the Pac-12 title. That would be the easy answer to say, it was just done last year. The one difference for me is I think Arizona, UCLA, and USC have separated themselves from the conference. They're dominant, relatively speaking, in this setting versus last year where it was a little bit of a crapshoot. Now, UCLA turned out to be dominant, but none of us said that at that time. Felt like they were a dominant team. So I would be surprised if it wasn't one of the three teams that I mentioned. It wasn't Arizona, UCLA, or USC. I think that would be a big surprise, but it has been done. It can be done. And, the hot teams, ASU, hot, Colorado's playing well. So if they can get by their first two games and get to the title game, all bets are off.
Ryan, it's really hard to come up with a weakness for this team, and we've spent a good amount of this time talking about all the things they do so well. But is the fact that they don't defend the 3-point line as well as they do from 2-point any concern of yours going into postseason play?
It's interesting you raised that. I was watching a guy's conversation about this, an expert in the industry named Ken Pomeroy. You know who Ken Pom is. He's the guru of advanced metrics as it relates to college basketball, much like Moneyball was for baseball. And so a lot of people have heard who Ken is, and he has some of those statistics that he breaks out in one of his arguments as he's looked at the last 20 NCAA tournaments is teams that don't defend the 3-point shot, that play a team that's their thing, that's what they do exceptionally well, are just more susceptible for that one night. All it takes is that one night of that team that knocks the three down with regularity. The probability would say they're more likely to have a hot night than a bad shooting team if it's against a team that doesn't defend the three as well as it does the two, or relative to the rest of the country. You're more susceptible to that off night woes. That is definitely one thing to look at when you're looking at matchups. Some of the other things, I don't want to say Arizona's cured its turnover problems, but that would be something I would be concerned with. A team that's exceptionally physical, that turns you over against a team that relies on passing, is very good at it, but sometimes is too unselfish and maybe tries to get too, and sorry for this phrase, I like to say this, too cute. Like they're trying to thread the needle. They're trying for the highlight pass, the NCAA tournament, bright lights, big stage. I'm going to throw that lob pass from 3-quarter court and it's out of bounds instead of a dunk. You start getting to that level. If you're playing a team defensively that turns you over, I think that would be another team I would be, maybe more concerned about.
Well, Rhino, this might be the last time we talk to you, I suppose, before the national championship game. So let's, in your vast experience dating back to the early 90s with this Arizona Wildcat team, and seeing all the ways they've, as we've been talking about, won a national championship or lost when they probably, were expected to go pretty deep. And you don't have a crystal ball, but give me your gut. Give me your thoughts about just how talented this team really is and how this will play when we get to the NCAA tournament.
My gut tells me this team has a great chance for a deep run. And when I say deep run, I'm talking my kind of holy grail moment is Final Four. That's when you etch your name in the history books. National champion, clearly you're a coup de grace moment. But I think this team does have the ability to play fast, play slow. It's got athletic bigs. It's got unbelievable guard play. And when you talk about, well, you need guard play, that's another like famous phrase in the NCAA tournament. I would say it's not point guard play, it's guard play. You need handlers and scorers and distributors. The combination of Dalen Terry, Ben Mathurin, and Kerr Kriisa, I think if they're playing at their best or above, right? They're above average or at their best. That's a pretty difficult group to defend and to stop, because you have distributors at all three spaces now that Ben is starting to find his teammates. So when you have the guard triumvirate there, and you combine that with what we've been doing defensively. And sorry, one more statistical breakdown that I've looked at very closely that I'd love to share with you is look at field goal percentage on offense, field goal percentage on defense. And Arizona has a huge gap, meaning they're very good on offense and very good on defense. It's almost at historic levels for modern day Arizona basketball. The gap is about 11% between 48-ish, 49% shooting for Arizona and 38% field goal percentage defense. That tells me if one's off, the other one could win the game for them. And that's why I think Arizona is really primed for a deep run.
All right, let's end on some fun comments here. Alex Steiniger, if they win the championship, will gas prices go down? Alex, the way it works is whatever the field goal percentage is of the opposing team is what the gas per gallon is. So if they hold the team to 31% shooting, gas goes down to $3.10. I believe that's how it works.
Wouldn't that be great?
Lindsey Hopkins, if the men's team played the women's team, who would win? Lindsey, as good as this men's team is, they're not that good. Okay. The women's team, I think, would win on International Women's Day for sure. I think that's International Women's Day. Yeah,
it is International.
It's a fantastic men's team. Take nothing away from them, but I do not think they would beat Adia Barnes' team. Pat, any final thoughts before we say goodbye to Ryan?
No, I'll get Rhino's thoughts real quick because I know he pays attention as well. 2 weeks ago, we never thought at all that we'd be saying there's a chance Arizona women don't host this first weekend of the NCAA tournament. It's just, it goes to show you, Rhino, as you kind of alluded to before, you got to be healthy. You got to stay playing hot basketball. And unfortunately, they were starting not to play great basketball, and then they had Kate Reese get hurt.
Yeah, when you look at the metrics and the analytics for the women's side, and if I just apply the same rule of thumb, and I'm not a women's college basketball expert, I don't follow them nearly as closely as I do as the men's side, but I do follow close enough to know this. They're outside the top 16 when it comes to the metrics, and that is the number to look at. Hosting, you need to be in the seed line 1 through 16.
Yeah, but let me stop you. If they lobby that they're going to have more people in attendance, and they lost a couple of games because their best player was hurt and she's now going to be back, I know they're not in the top 16. There's no argument there, but can't they lobby to get in based on those two things?
I'll take the one that I think is more likely to be looked at, and that is the Kate Reese injury. Have they? I don't know. Have they told the NCAA with confidence that Kate Reese will be back? Because if that's the case, you're right. They will take that into account of these losses down the stretch. Will it move them up a seed line or not? They won't make a 20th seed line team be able to host necessarily. They would move them up the seed line. But if they had, strange things can happen, right? They could be a 5 seed outside the top 16, right? So technically not hosting, but the 4 seed in their pod may draw 2 people to their home games. Does that factor in? My understanding is the NCAA says neutrality-wise, no, that doesn't factor in. But Jason, I think you asked the question because they want crowds, they want good support. There is that need. So would Arizona get a tip of the hat for those factors? Yes, this is why it's such a great question, Pat. This is a big decision for the NCAA selection committee. It's not a slam dunk that Arizona would host, but there's mitigating factors that offset the metrics that give you pause to say, maybe we should have them host.
It'd really be a shame if they don't,
Exactly.
because they
Yeah.
were going to 2 years ago when everything got canceled, and then obviously they would have last year when the whole tournament was in San
Now,
Antonio.
you and I both have heard this phrase for years in the NCAA selection committee, body of work, right? So you don't want to be a prisoner of the moment and look at, well, what happened last weekend to make all your decisions as a committee. You should look at the body of work. And that's where I believe Adia has proven that this year's team in the body of work has warrants a hosting spot.
Well, your body of work has been terrific for this show today, Ryan. So thank you very much for joining us here for this. We're up against our time. So, Pat, any final thoughts? Or
no, just
okay.
I hope that we do see the women get a host bid, and I look forward to the men with this Pac-12 run. And I think March is going to be special, and let's hope that it ends not in March but in April.
For my money, it's the best time of the year.
Yep, exactly.
For sure.
Thanks, Rhino.
We'll be listening to you on the radio. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pat,
here,
Jason, thank you.
On the Huddle. All right, Ryan, thank you so much. And for Pat, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks, everybody, for watching the Huddle here on KGUN 9's streaming platform. We'll see you back here next Tuesday at this time.